Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by Charlie Robinson, someone I'm very excited to meet. Octopus of Global Control, incredible book. I just saw you here. Everyone wants a signed copy of your book, and that says that's a testament to what you're doing here. And you've been in real estate for a long time. You've got developments going. We can't talk about all of it at the same time, but I wanted to talk about the whole idea of the Octopus of Global Control and incorporate, first of all, the real estate market, because we're seeing a lot of the things that we saw before in 2007. We're seeing a lot of, the collateralized debt obligations, people lining up for subprime mortgages, lots of debt, and that means dependency. What do you think about the current market in the United States right now?
It's taking it looks like a mirror image or a photocopy of 2007. It's the same things. The things that I saw back then in when I was in new home sales, I'm seeing again. It's frustrating because so many people that got creamed in those in that market are lining up for it again. They're going back and they're saying, oh yeah, but this time it'll be different. It's not going to be different. It might be there's variations. It's not it's not a whole lot of the no income, no asset verification loans and things like that. Oh, well, the subprime loans are gone, so everything should be fine, right? No, everything's not fine, because what you're having is unsustainable price increases. You're having too many, as the interest rates rise, days on the market rise. These are signs of things that are taking a turn for the worse. You're seeing builders that are offering tremendous incentives, which sounds great on the, if you're a buyer, you think, well, this is great, I'm going to buy the house for much less. But you have to ask yourself, why am I buying the house for much less? Why is the builder offering incentives? If things are so good, then shouldn't there be no incentive? Shouldn't that buying the house itself be enough of an incentive? And the answer is no, because they see trouble on the horizons. They have tons of land in development that takes 2 years at least to go through the entitlement process and the land development. So they have to keep things going. They realize this is a bit of a Ponzi scheme, but they can't admit it. They'll never admit it. You'll never turn on the TV and hear them say, the market it looks like we're at the beginning of something catastrophic. If you're waiting for that, you'll be waiting for that forever, because it's never going to come. And when it happens, it'll happen quickly, and it'll be covered up by the media, and they won't discuss it until it becomes so obvious and everybody's already been creamed by it that there's no way they can go except to bring it up then. But at that time, it'll be too late. You'll be underwater. So what I was telling people in the presentation here at Dollar Vigilante Summit was that I know it's a pain in the ass to sell your house. It takes a tremendous amount of foresight to say things are going to be bad. Right now they're okay, but headed that direction. I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to rent something in the meantime, and I'm going to do that for the next 3 or 4 years, and then I'm going to buy a similar house back at a much lower price. So to do that takes guts, and it's an inconvenience. But if you know that you can buy the same house for 40% less a couple years from now, then it's worth it. It's worth doing that. It's worth stepping up and saying, having that conversation with your family and saying, listen, I see something that everybody else doesn't see. I'm not crazy. I recognize the signs. I have confidence in my ability to understand what these numbers mean. I know where this is going because we just went through it 10 years ago. The signs are there. And so let's be proactive. Let's be ahead of the curve. Let's not get destroyed by this tidal wave. Let's get out of the way, because it's coming. You're not going to be able to stop it. You're not going to be able to fix it. The only thing you can do is get out of the way, lead by example, invest in the tell your family, we're gonna do something that's going to be pretty inconvenient, but you're going to have to trust me on it. It's going to be good in the long term, and then you will look like the one guy that I know who lived in Burbank and said in 2007, I feel like this market's a bit overheated, and I have a 3-bedroom house. I'm going to sell it and rent a 1-bedroom apartment for the next couple years, and then buy a similar house back. It's exactly what he did. We all thought he was nuts. He was right. And now I look at him as the smartest guy I've ever met because of that.
Well, I want to kind of go into the how this brings us into that debt dependency as well, because I know that we're seeing tremors coming from government and central banks, with interest rates, with the rent controls being pushed in certain places. We saw the recent downturns in places like San Diego already and places like Toronto, Canada, and it's getting really bad. A lot of people are impoverished because they're so dependent on the banking system, government, the debt that comes from getting these massive loans and thinking your house is just an asset that you could just buy and say nothing. What can people do to get into the real estate market without getting into massive amounts of debt? Is there a secret to get around just being completely owned and controlled by the banking system?
Well, there's one way that you can offset some of your monthly expenses, and that is by having somebody else pick up the tab for part of it. There's a new sort of style of homes called multi-generational family. I'm hugely bullish on this because what it is let's say it's a house with a guest house. There's nothing really revolutionary about that, but builders don't build that. I worked for builders for 10 years. They never build that. They're traditionally very conservative, and they lack creativity and imagination. They won't do it. If some other builder builds a house with a guest house and that starts to do well, then you'll start to see them all pile into it. So if you're somebody that has a house or you're going to build a house, if you add that extra component, what you can do, you'll see a lot of people that have older family members that are, for instance, my mom is in her late 70s. She's doing okay, but I'd like to have her close to me. She can be in that guest house. I can keep an eye on her, have her own private entrance, her own detached house. Or if you have kids that have just graduated from college, don't have a job like a lot of people, and the family says, well, why don't you come back and live with us without the stigma of living in your parents' basement? You can have your own autonomy and your own privacy in this little house. Or the third thing is that it can be an investment. Like you can dip your toe in as an investment. You say, I don't want to own a 20-unit apartment complex because I don't have the time to take care of all that. Well, do you have time to manage one guy? Maybe you have one businessman who wants to rent your one-bedroom detached apartment because he travels a lot, he doesn't really, and so that's easy to manage. You don't have to be a landlord to do that. You just have to keep an eye on him, collect the check once a month and make sure that the roof doesn't blow off. So we're seeing people that want to get it, and then that helps to subsidize, if you have a mortgage, helps to subsidize your mortgage and offset it, or if you paid cash, it's just revenue stream coming in. So there will always be a need for that. So if some people don't want to, pack up and leave the United States because things are, there's an impending crisis coming, they have to stay for their job. Well, okay, fine, stay, but make some modifications. If you do that, you can create an extra source of revenue that will help you get through it, and you'll be better off for it, I would say.
And people are being pushed into servitude from so many angles, from the banking system, from the government, to culture and conspiracy. And I mean, you've wrote a whole book about just breaking this down, and it's a perfect title, The Octopus of Global Control. Can you talk a little bit about your book and why people should look into your book? Because I think it breaks down so many important issues.
Well, it's funny because it came about, I was working in real estate and I was experiencing this in Las Vegas, and I went off on a dive trip and read John Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and that changed my life because it explained the scam. It explained the scam of the World Bank and the IMF, the central banking, the loan-to-own mentality, and I was reading this book going, oh my God, I can't believe this is real, and then I was experiencing it on a smaller level when I was living in Las Vegas during this boom in 2006 and 2007. I was like, I'm part of it. I didn't realize it. So the conspiracy aspect, I think people might think you could do real estate or you can write conspiracy books. I actually think they work well together because what I learned was that by understanding the conspiracy aspects of it, the fact that markets are rigged, Forex, LIBOR, you name it. They've all been, the banks have paid hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in fines, so this is not imaginary. They are rigging markets and the central banking and everything. So if you understand that and you understand how government gets involved and screws things up by putting their finger on the scales, you can position yourself accordingly. You can get out of the way. You can have the best intentions. You could be in a red hot real estate market or a stable real estate market that has never seen any gigantic price drops, and still get whacked because of something that happens externally, that happens in China, where the Chinese are no longer buying real estate in your part of the. You experience that in Canada. The Chinese come in, or as an American, And I grew up in Palm Springs, huge area for Canadians that come down. Our real estate market would be dictated by the currency in Canada. And it would be something that you might not really think about. So understanding the geopolitical scams and the way governments monkey with things and screw things up actually makes you better as a real estate advisor or investor, because you can see things coming before they happen. Whereas the typical person that's not up to speed, they'll only know that the crash has happened when it's there. But for people that have an understanding of how controlled these markets can be and how rigged they can be and how the interest rates can be manipulated and are manipulated, and how the Federal Reserve expands the balance sheet and then contracts it to take back tangible assets, you're not going to be able to prevent it. You're not going to be able to save everybody, but you can save yourself. You can get out of the way. You can live to fight another day. And so that's part of what I was talking about today at the summit.
And I've spoken with a lot of advisors that are very confident, but don't really know what they're talking about. And I'm not someone who has a PhD. I haven't gone to school for any of this. But when you can talk to someone that's so well seasoned in this space and they don't understand that system at all, it concerns you, because a lot of people are being dependent on those people to give them the right advice because they don't know about money. Money might be boring to them, which is so important, because if you don't control your own money, folks, your money controls you, and the people that control the money control you. But I wanted to finish this off by talking about Pangea Limited, because I know that you're involved in a big development. Can you go into what that is?
I own an island in Belize, which is awesome. And you want to talk about one of those crazy things. I went on a trip to Belize and saw this island called Secret Island. And I said, I've got to have it. I want to buy this. I think this is going to be a great thing. So what I've done is I bought it. I'm looking to, I think that Belize is fantastic. If you don't know, it's just sort of south of Cancun. And it's turning into this great, amazing place. But I think that the reason why I bought the island was the concept was to build up a house with a couple guest houses and then fractionalize the ownership into smaller chunks and let people own a much smaller piece of the pie. Now, with a second home, the biggest problem with it is underutilization and the guilt associated with that. So I like the concept of fractionalization, not timeshares. Timeshares are different. They're sort of selling usage, but not the actual project itself. So that was what we bought the island with the hopes of developing it. Who doesn't want to have a place on an island? Especially with the way the world's going. If you want to escape someplace. So anyway, that was the plan. So we've got Pangea Limited. That's the company that I started that's going to do the island development. And Ultra Luxury is our real estate brokerage in Las Vegas. We do residential real estate and also interior design. And then
you guys are featured on HGTV as well.
My partners are Aubrey and Bristol Morendi. They're the husband and wife team that are the stars of Flipper Flop Vegas on HGTV. We're just finishing up filming season 3, so that'll be out in about a month. So we'll check that out. So that gives us a nice little. It's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. It's a little inconvenient at times. We get a little preoccupied with the filming and less with the real estate. But we've bought and renovated over 200 houses. So there's always that. So I was cautious in my talk about the way the real estate market is going. But the reality is that even in a down market, if you add value, if you buy a house, add value to it, and resell it, you can be okay. You don't have to be in a red hot bull market to do that. In fact, there's problems with it. When prices are going up, everyone wants to buy a house. You have more competition trying to find a house that needs to be renovated. So and then you can, of course, you can resell it at a higher price because the market is also going higher. But even in a down market, as things are going down, it's just the reverse. You have an easier time finding deals because everyone's selling, but the downside is the prices will drop too. So as long as you add value to it, do it quick and put it on the market, you can still make money in an up market or a down market. So we're doing that with Ultra Luxury, and then my book, The Octopus of Global Control, is available on Amazon. And if you don't like Jeff Bezos, you can buy it at barnesandnoble.com, or you can go to my website, theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. Check it out there, and I encourage all you people to get to an Acapulco and the Dollar Vigilante Summit next year. This is my first year here. I am loving it. I spoke here so that I could come and hear everybody else speak, because it is fantastic. We've got flamingos, and we've got a pool, and we got the ocean. It's great. So
and great information and people that are passionate. And I mean, we could talk all day about the how property taxes affect this, how important cash flow is, and all that kind of stuff. Because obviously, for a diverse portfolio, cash flow is very important. But I mean, it's such a complex subject in general. But when you get into the meat and potatoes, like some would say, you can see how they utilize the system to push people into dependence and all that. But it's an important thing to do. Real estate, I know so many people that are in real estate that do great at it, and you just have to not be dependent on others and try and focus on how do you have a plan? Do you know what you're doing? Don't try and just flip a place without ever looking at the market and just, I'm just going to buy a house and I'll make more for sure. Let's look into it a bit, but yeah.
There's more to it. Yeah, of course, there's more to it than that. And it's funny that I didn't get I didn't have that class in high school or in college that talks about money management and the sources of money and how it's printed out of thin air and fractional reserve banking and all that stuff. And the reason why I didn't learn about that is because they don't want you to know about that. Because if you know about that, you say, this system is corrupt, it's going to collapse, it's a Ponzi scheme, the dollar's lost 98% of its value over 100 years. Why is that? Well, because they need to inflate the currency so they can pay it back at a lower... All that stuff was like like my head hurt. I would watch videos, I would hear people talk, listen to Jeff Berwick talk, and I would have to just take a nap afterwards because it was so much. And I thought, if kids learned about money early on, then we could stop this. We could put an end to this cycle. But the reason why they don't learn about the true mechanisms of money is because the people that are in control don't want you to know, because information about that is detrimental to them. And so they will continue to keep you in the dark. But it's not going to last forever. People are waking up to this, and people are spreading the word. And it only takes getting burnt. I got whacked in the real estate crash in 2007. And part of what going through that, and as painful as it was my sort of promise to myself that if I ever saw something like this coming again, I would do whatever I could to scream from the rooftops, it's coming again. I see the tidal wave coming, and I see it, and I hate saying that. I take no pleasure in that because it sucks, because I know a lot of people are going to get hurt, and a lot of people are going to lose their houses again, and here we go. And who's not going to get hurt? The banks. They always seem to sort of make it through all right. And I watched the Goldman Sachs vulture funds come into Vegas in 2010 and 2011 and buy up everything that they could. They didn't even care. They just tell guys at the auction, give me everything you got. And they would stick renters in there and ride that out, and then they've been selling. So, by the way, if Goldman Sachs is selling, get out.
Yeah,
they know something. They manipulate, and it's not accidental. These market inflations and deflations are not accidental. They are happening by design, and it is because they create fake paper, loan it out, people buy houses, then they contract the money supply and take tangible assets back. It's such a scam.
And actually just recently we reported Morgan Stanley called for people to actually get out of the market, which is alarming to say the least. Yes, but that was one of their advisors. Anyway, there's so much we can go into here. It's a super interesting subject. After all, it all comes down to an independent, responsible, educated public. The government does not like that. The establishment does not like that. So do exactly the opposite of whatever the establishment wants you to do. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so heavily demonetized and censored by YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. The shadow banning is getting really bad, guys. Also, check our Bitcoin address right here on the screen or in the description below. We really appreciate it. And of course, check us out at the Red Pill Expo 2019. Of course, the great G. Edward Griffin and so many other incredible speakers will be there. Our link for that is below as well. And we cannot forget Mike Maloney's goldsilver.com, which you can also find in the description. One of the greatest market and monetary historians out there. We really encourage everyone to check that out. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.